all dressed in their most fashionable evening attire. Some were still finishing their dinners, but most were milling about, talking in little groups as they tried to see or be seen. In the background, an orchestra was playing selections from the senator's youth, inspiring some to ignore the evening's agenda and start dancing, despite disapproving looks from the older, more conservative guests. The orchestra suddenly stopped mid-chorus, breaking into the upbeat theme song used in the senator's last campaign. The attention of the crowd suddenly turned toward the top of the stairs that lead from the south entrance of the main house down into the courtyard. As if by magic and in perfect time with the music, two pale blue spotlights snapped open at the top of the stairs, revealing the senator and his wife. Again in time with the music, the senator thrust his right hand up into the air in triumph, a gesture made popular at his last victory party. The crowd broke into cheers and thunderous applause, while the senator took his wife's hand and began their journey down the staircase. The spotlights captured every step as they descended, waving to the crowd, occasionally making a special effort to point at those guests they knew best. It was an absolute frenzy of excitement, albeit a perfectly choreographed one. As the senator reached the bottom of the stairs, his wife let go of his hand and turned to her left, disappearing into the darkness as her spotlight faded out right on cue. The senator broke into a jog, peeling off to the right, looking fit and full of life despite his age. He made his way onto the stage and over to the podium, arriving just as the music reached its climax. "Thank you," he said, repeating himself several times while he waited for the applause to die down. "Is everyone having a good Founder's Day?" he yelled, whipping them back up into a thunderous roar. He continued waving at the crowd another full minute before the ovation finally died down enough for him to be heard. "Good. I'm glad everyone is having a good evening. It's an important day in the history of our world, and it should be celebrated." The senator looked around the crowd as the last of the applause fell silent. Finally, he launched into the main body of his prepared speech, his tone changing to one more befitting the topic. Long ago, humanity was tossed back into a period of darkness and despair, the likes of which were unseen in human history. For over 1,000 years, our ancestors struggled to survive in the wake of the most devastating disaster ever to befall humankind. A plague of biblical proportions nearly wiped humanity out of existence, leaving only those blessed with a natural immunity to survive and start over. But the great bio-digital plague did more than reduce our populations. It did more than destroy our civilizations and our infrastructures, and it did more than take away our science, culture, and technology. It took away our unity as a people. It took away our common dreams and goals. In fact, it took away our very will to carry on. The senator paused for dramatic effect, scanning the faces of the guests standing on his lawn, until he felt that the moment was right to add one word. Almost. For despite the hardships, and despite the pain and suffering, despite the thousands of mass graves and the countless suicides in the face of utter despair, humanity found a way to carry on. We joined together in small groups at first, scratching out a meager existence. And in time things got better. In time, we forgot. We forgot the horror, the despair, and the tragedy. But with each new generation, we also forgot ourselves, who we were, where we came from, and what we had once been. We even forgot that humans just like us were struggling in much the same way on worlds we had colonized out amongst the stars. The senator paused again, making eye contact with a few faces in the crowd. He knew that each person whose eyes he met equaled another vote. For centuries on end, we merely existed, making little to no attempt to reclaim that which had been lost. Eventually, as our populations grew, necessity again became the mother of invention. Slowly but surely, we began to move forward, to rebuild. But we had to relearn all that had been forgotten. We had to conduct the same experiments, the same research and development, and suffer through the same countless failures as we slowly progressed. Until that fateful day of discovery, the day we learned that everything we once were had not been lost, but had only been misplaced. It was the day that humanity would regain all that had been taken from us. It was the day the data arc was discovered. "Jeez," the young man mumbled as he sipped his cocktail. You'd think he had been there himself. He finished his drink.